Hi, good morning, dear colleagues from China, and good afternoon, good evening, colleagues from Canada. Welcome to Canada, China Pea and Flaxseed Industrial Information Sharing Session and Exchange. So we have simultaneous interpretation. You can click on the links to switch to your preferred languages. This session is co-hosted from Canada Embassy of Canada to China and Alberta Ministry of Agriculture as well as CFNA. My name is Yuan Ping, Trade Commissioner from the Agriculture team of Embassy of Canada, and I will be hosting today's session together with Mr. Sun Kai from CFNA. This session will last about 2 hours. We have recordings of this session. If you need replay, please feel free to reach out to me or Sun Kai from CFNA. Okay, now let's move on with the agenda. First of all, let's welcome Mr. Cao Zherong, President of CFNA. CFNA, with 40 years of history focused on food, agriculture, and beverage, it is a chamber of commerce focused on imports and exports. CFNA has about more than 7,000 member companies, and each year they will organize meetings, conferences, and exchange sessions, and have been one of our treasured partners. So let's give a warm round of applause to Mr. Cao Zherong. Distinguished Mr. Trevor Yu, Agriculture Counselor of Embassy of Canada, and dear representatives from Canada and the Chinese enterprises, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm really happy that we are co-hosting with the Canada Embassy to China, the China-Canada Pea and Flaxseed Trade Online B2B session, and thanks to Alberta and Saskatchewan for your great support to this activity. In the beginning of the year 2022, we hosted the first China-Canada Enterprise Online B2B matching session, and this year we are hosting this meeting again. That with our joint efforts, we can realize great success and fruitful outcome from this online meeting. Canada is a powerhouse for agriculture production and commerce. More than 50% of its agricultural products are for exports. And China, it is not only a big producer but also a consumer of agricultural products and have been increasing in both channels. So the 2022 import total volume exceeded $236 billion, growing by 7.4%, and China has imported goods with a value of $5.404 billion and decreasing by 10.07%. And we are really complementary to each other. Canada is a major pea supplier, and its export of pea accounts for more than 90% of China's import of pea. And Canada is also a supplier of flaxseed, and its total annual output of export account for 40% of China's import. So with Chinese people getting more and more aware of health and with their increasing level of consumption, so more consumers are accepting and favoring plant-based food and flaxseed oil. And this is also bringing the increased rise of pea and flaxseed. Although in the last year, Canadian pea dropped in price, but it is still relatively high when compared with 2020 levels. Due to COVID-19, the pea protein processing industry is also slowing down in terms of development. So on one hand, we have a higher price, and on the other hand, the domestic processing industries have been impacted by the COVID-19. So in year 2022, China has lower demand for raw materials from Canadian pea, but I believe with COVID-19 going away, I believe people will continue to purchase pea, and I believe as you know, the COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted. The consumer will have a higher willingness to buy, and more companies are investing in R&D. And I believe the market demand for pea and flaxseed is going to rebound as well. China and Canada has great opportunity to work together in pea and flaxseed trade, and we have great development potential in terms of investment, R&D, production, and marketing in related industries. So with today's meeting, we hope we can exchange information, facilitate mutual understanding, and promote collaboration so we can realize win-win outcome and consolidate the China-Canadian trade relationships. So thank you once again to Mr. Trevor Yu. And I show my heartfelt thanks to the two hosts, and I wish today's meeting a complete success. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President Cao. Now let's welcome Mr. Trevor Yu, Agriculture Counselor of Embassy of Canada, to give his opening remarks. So, Mr. Trevor Yu is an expert of botanics, and he has great understanding of market access. So his experience can better help you for trade and commerce of agriculture products. Let's welcome Mr. Trevor Yu.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, President Tao. We've been working very closely with your association for years and highly appreciate all the collaboration between us. Also, I'd like to thank Alberta and Saskatchewan governments for supporting the webinar today. The world is constantly changing and bringing new challenges. We've seen many difficulties these past few years, and it's great to have this opportunity to meet. It's been 3 years living with the challenges of COVID. Many Canadian pea value chain colleagues, such as Pulse Canada, Canadian pea and flaxseed exporters, and others, were unable to make physical visits to China and meet with their counterparts face to face, as they could do before. I'm sure we're all thrilled by the lifting of travel restrictions and have made plans or are planning international travel in the coming months. Our webinar today is to provide a platform for importers and exporters to connect and reconnect so as to pave the way for face-to-face business meetings. China has many people to support and of course relies on domestic as well as imported food to feed its people. China remains a very important export market for Canadian agriculture products and seafood, with exports reaching approximately $9.6 billion in 2022. With respect to dried peas, in 2022, China was again Canada's #1 export market as it was in 2021, ahead of other dried pea export destinations. And in fact, the value of Canadian dried peas imported into China were more than triple the rest of the world's imports of dried peas combined. Specifically, pea imports into China were approximately $864 million in 2022, an 11% increase in value over 2021. These numbers are astounding, and we hope that they will continue to grow. For flaxseed, imports into China have historically been between 100 to 150 million per year, with some decline in recent years. Canadian flaxseed is renowned for its consistently high quality and nutritional content and is used in food preparations and oil production. It's clear from these numbers that partnerships between Canadian and Chinese businesses continue to remain strong, and we must continue to work together to ensure this continues for mutual benefit. Canadian industry is keen to consistently supply high-quality peas and flaxseed for the Chinese market. It's particularly evident that the pea value chain remains vital to Canada's, China's, as well as the world's food supply. And perhaps it goes without saying that we in this virtual room, share this common view. I look forward to connecting with many of you and learning about the diverse new technologies, products, and innovative opportunities that exist for the sectors. Alternative proteins are being accepted and adopted in many countries nowadays, including both Canada and China. Plant-based proteins are by far the largest segment of alternative proteins. I enjoy vegetarian food myself and have a strong interest in plant-based foods, and I'm excited to hear of new developments in the science and thoughts in the sector. Plant-based foods have exploded not just in popularity, but in complexity, variety, and quality. Pea protein is an important ingredient in these products. The past decade has witnessed unprecedented growth in protein demand worldwide. This is an expanding opportunity for both Canadian and Chinese stakeholders and reinforces that we should work together more than ever. We're glad to see a number of Canadian companies attending the webinar today, and that some of you will attend the matchmaking session tomorrow. I would like to remind you of the importance of ensuring your eligibility and compliance with requirements before reaching any business contracts. To be eligible to export to China, you need to have your company or facility registered with China Customs, GACC. I encourage you to contact your local office of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, or alternatively, contact myself or Ping at the Canadian Embassy. Ping is chairing today's webinar, and we can provide some further guidance. In closing, I'd like to leave you with what I feel is an inspirational Chinese proverb inspired by a local and important location in Shandong Province, Taishan. 人心齐，泰山移. When people work together with one heart, they can even move Mount Tai. These are perhaps words to live by, to encourage us to continue our great work together, to benefit from successful pea and flax trade and related industries. Thank you, 感谢 to President Tao, CFNA, Alberta and Saskatchewan governments, and all participants in Canada and China. Please enjoy the conference and good luck.
谢谢于参赞。下面的两位演讲嘉宾呢
Thank you, Trevor Yu, for your speech. Our next two speakers are from AB and SK provinces. These two provinces are located in the central and western part of Canada. It is rich in all kinds of agricultural produce, including flaxseed, wheat, etc. To start with, let's welcome Mr. William Wang, Director of AB China Office Intergovernmental Relations.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everyone from China and good evening to everyone from Canada. First, I want to thank China Chamber of Commerce of Import and Export of Foodstuffs, native produce and animal products, Embassy of Canada in Beijing, Government of Saskatchewan, and our Government of Alberta to organize today's event. Thank you to all of you to join today to discover the opportunity for trade partnership with the Canadian peas, flaxseed, and other grain suppliers. As one of the Canadian major agriculture production provinces, there are 41,505 farms in Alberta. The total farm area is 49.2 million acres. That is about 298.6 million Chinese mon. The average farm size in Alberta is 1,184 acres. That is about 7,186 Chinese mon. Alberta's major crops are wheat, barley, canola, pulse, oats, flaxseed, and forage. Today's event is focused on peas and flaxseed. In 2022, the total dry peas production in Alberta was 1.6 million metric tons, with an increase of 73.9% compared to 2021. This represents a 45.4% of the total share of Canadian dry pea production. In other words, almost half Canada's peas are produced in Alberta. In 2022, the total flaxseed production in Alberta was 83,237 metric tons, with an increase of 60.4% compared to 2021. This represents a 17.6% of the total share of Canadian flaxseed production. Alberta's strategic location makes our agri-food industry to export to China and other areas in Asia much easier. Canada and China have long-standing agri-food trade relationship that can be traced back to 1950s. China has been Alberta's major trading partner for decades. We produce more than we consume, and we are pleased that China has been our second largest trading partner for many years. Alberta offers global agri-food companies the right condition for trade and investment, including high-quality input, strong research and development infrastructure, a talented workforce, a competitive food processing industry, efficient transportation and logistic infrastructure, and a business-friendly environment. Alberta has no provincial sales, capital, or payroll taxes, and has the lowest corporate tax rate in Canada at 8%, and the most competitive taxation system in Canada. In February 2023, the government of Alberta announced the new tax credit to encourage investment in agri-processing facilities in Alberta. The government of Alberta welcomes investment and trade to our province. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to introduce Alberta's agriculture sector. Once again, I want to thank the organizer to organize this great event. I also want to thank all of you for taking time from your busy schedule to attend this webinar. I wish the success for today's event. Thank you.
谢谢王学伟主任。下面我们有请萨斯卡车分手。
Thank you, William Wang. Our next speaker is Steve Norgate, Director, International Engagement, Trade and Value-Added Branch, Ministry of Agriculture of SK Provinces.
And good morning, everyone. As said, I'm Steve Norgate, the Director of International Engagement with the Trade and Value-Added Branch at the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. On behalf of the Government of Saskatchewan, thank you for the opportunity to bring greetings at today's Canada-China pea and flaxseed trade online B2B event. I would also like to bring best wishes to everyone as we enter the year of the rabbit. Thank you, Mr. Xiao Duron from CFNA and Trevor Yu from the Embassy of Canada in Beijing for organizing this event. So the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture has a strong relationship with Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership, or STEP. And over the years, STEP has hosted many trade events with the China Chamber of Commerce of Import and Export Foodstuffs, native produce, and animal byproducts. We also welcome Pulse Canada to the event, who is a valuable partner of both Canada and the government of Saskatchewan. And also welcome William from the government of Alberta. So Canada, Saskatchewan, and China have a very strong relationship, and it's a relationship that we greatly appreciate. China is consistently Saskatchewan's second largest agri-food market, and between 2013 and 2022, Saskatchewan's exports to China increased by approximately 65%. And in 2022, our agri-food exports to China were the third largest on record, worth $3.3 billion Canadian. Saskatchewan dry pea exports to China have almost doubled in dollar value since 2013, with exports in 2020 valued at $690 million. And China is also a top market for Saskatchewan flaxseed. We are committed to the Chinese market as demonstrated by the operation of our China Trade Office since 2010. During this session and the B2B meetings tomorrow, Saskatchewan will be represented by 8 companies who are eager to explore new trade opportunities with CFNA members and stakeholders. So Saskatchewan plays an increasingly important role as a major food supplier to the world's rapidly growing market, including China. Saskatchewan's huge area contains over 40% of Canada's arable land, and Saskatchewan is one of the most productively intense and sustainable producers of foods, including pulse crops. Perfect, that's the perfect slide. Saskatchewan has a critical mass of agriculture and food-related companies, from large multinationals to national and regional companies. In 2022, Saskatchewan accounted for 74% of Canada's flaxseed, 46% or half of Canada's dry pea, as well as 53% of Canada's canola production. Also on the slide, you can see some of the other noteworthy commodities that we grow. The province is the world's largest dry pea exporter of dry peas, durum wheat, and canola. And we are Canada's leading producer of grains and oilseeds. Saskatchewan and Canada overall have a resilient and reliable supply chains to move raw and processed products to market. And the government of Saskatchewan and industry work collaboratively to improve the transportation infrastructure in my province, from highways to inland terminals, including container facilities such as the Global Transportation Hub and Chuka Creek Business Park. In addition, the government of Saskatchewan is committed to ensuring the long-term viability of the industry and has set targets to grow our province's agriculture sector. This growth will occur while maintaining Saskatchewan and Canada's reputation as a consistent supplier of safe and high-quality agriculture products, food, and ingredients. Our long-term strategic plan for growth includes the ambitious goals of growing our crop production to 45 million metric tons by 2030 to help meet increasing global demand for pulses, cereals, and edible oils. As a baseline in 2022, Saskatchewan produced 35 million metric tons. So to complement our companies, Saskatchewan also has the critical mass of agriculture research institutions who, together with these companies, form the backbone of our flourishing value-added ecosystem. And research is a critical component or a critical element in how government supports the value chain, with funding for pulse research projects covering various co-products from protein to starch. Between 2019 and 2024, the government is investing $2.5 million to improve yellow pea protein and quality using a genomic approach while maintaining and improving yield, agronomic, and seed quality traits. Saskatchewan yellow pea research has increased demand for pea ingredients used in a variety of products, from protein bars to noodles and a wide range of other consumer products. And this research has helped to grow Saskatchewan yellow pea exports to China from 165 million in 2010 to 690 million today. And this research will encourage these exports to grow further in the future. It has been a pleasure to connect with you all today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. 谢谢 Steve 先生。对于我们做豌豆亚
Thank you,
麻
Steve, for your introduction.
粮食业务的中国
For the Chinese producers in pea and flaxseed, it is important to visit on-site to know about the quality of the products.
欢迎大家组团。
Since we have lifted the restrictions on traveling, so we welcome you to visit AB and SK provinces to know more about the agro-produce. If you are interested, you are more than welcome to contact with us, with CFNA, or with our colleagues. Now we are going to the reporting session. Our first speaker is from the Market Access Trade Policy of Pulse Canada, Mr. Mac Ross, and he is an old friend of us. Last year, the Pulse Canada on the online conference of P, and he also shared the experience. Now let's welcome Mac Ross to share with us.
Thank you. So as Ping mentioned, my name is Mac Ross. I'm the Director of Market Access and Trade Policy with Pulse Canada. I first want to start by thanking CFNA and President Zhao, also Trevor and Ping at the Canadian Embassy, and as well as the representatives from the governments of Alberta and Saskatchewan for the invite to speak with you today, for organizing such a great event, and for maintaining these very important connections between our respective sectors. So I can share my screen, and I do have a deck to go through today, so just give me 2 seconds. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So as far as Pulse Canada goes, Pulse Canada is the national association representing growers, traders, and processors of Canadian pulses, including Canadian peas. And we work together to ensure that we can supply our customers around the world with high quality pulse products. So as far as an overview for my presentation today, I was going to give a bit of a supply and disposition of Canadian field peas, as well as touch on some of the markets for Canadian peas, some of the global demand trends that we are seeing, as well as the impact that Canadian pulses are having on environmental sustainability, and also end with a long-term availability outlook. So I first wanted to touch on the global pulse industry and Canada's place within it. So although Canada is the largest producer of pulses like lentils and one of the largest producers of peas, we do only account for a fraction of global pulse production. But we are the world's largest exporter and supplier of pulses to the global marketplace. We export over 85% of the pulses grown in Canada. And on average, Canada exports close to 6 million metric tons of pulses every year to over 130 different countries globally. I also wanted to provide a snapshot of the supply and disposition of Canadian peas over the past several years, as well as a forecast of the supply for this upcoming growing season. So as you can see, we've seen a major rebound in production from the 2021 growing season. As you'll know, in 2021, Western Canada suffered an incredibly rare but extreme drought. In fact, almost 95% of land in Western Canada was under drought conditions, whereas in 2022, this past year, that number was only 10%. So really an amazing turnaround in the growing conditions in Western Canada. And even though slightly less pea acres were planted this past year in 2022 versus 21, we did see an increase of over 50% in production. And this was really driven by a strong yield, which was over 70% higher in 22 than 21. And with that has come a crop with real excellent quality. According to the Saskatchewan Department of Agriculture, the province in which the majority of our peas are grown, 94% of the 22 pea crop ended up in the top 2 Canadian grades. So, all this meant that Canada has had a much larger supply of peas in 22, up nearly 40% from last year. And exports are projected to finish this year at around 2.4 to 2.5 million metric tons total, leaving us with slightly higher ending stocks than last year at around 700,000 metric tons. I also wanted to just show you the projected availability of Canadian peas by type in 2023. So as you know, peas are grown in the Western Canadian provinces of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, with around 56% grown in Saskatchewan, 38% Alberta, which is important for China as this is the closest to the West Coast port. A lot of Canadian peas imported into China come from Alberta, and then the remainder in Manitoba for production. And the split will remain predominantly yellow peas. 85% of the acres will be yellow peas, green peas making up the balance of that. And market analysts are projecting about 2.35 million metric tons of availability for export markets in the 23-24 marketing year. I did also want to touch on the growth in Canada's pea export program over the years. So on the right side of that chart, you can see that total pea exports from Canada have increased greatly over the past 20 years. And in fact, our exports have increased by over 100% during that timeline. And since 2018, of course, China has become our largest and most important pea customer, accounting for around 60% of all of Canadian pea exports this past year. But what we're also starting to see is increased demand from other markets that are buying Canadian peas and would actually like to buy more. In North America, for example, we're both exporting more peas to the United States and using more peas domestically in Canada than we ever have before. And this has really been due to the advent and growth of the pea processing market in North America. And we've had quite a large amount of capacity in Canada for processing come online in the last several years, and this is a market that's expected to only continue to grow. I did just want to show the growth in pulse ingredient processing in Canada. We've gone from just one company processing pulses in the 80s to around 23 now currently, and we have the capacity now online to process 600,000 metric tons of pulses, and making Canada essentially the domestic sector here in Canada essentially the second largest market behind China in terms of volume. And of course, there are a number of underlying longer term dynamics that have really driven the growth in the pea processing market, as you all well know. We've seen a shift from traditional commodity-based markets to those of food, and in turn, a greater availability of pulse and pea flours, proteins, starches, and fibers. And we're starting to see pulse ingredients incorporated more and more into food products globally. In fact, there's been a 200% growth in global new product launches, including pulse ingredients, since 2010. And what we're seeing is that this changing global demand is really driving the growth in the pulse industry, not only in Canada, but globally. And as we know, pea protein shows a lot of promise for market growth over the coming 5 to 10 years. And plants are expected to be the largest source of alternative protein due to their limited environmental impact and their healthy attributes and perceptions by consumers. As we can see here, the plant-based protein market is projected to reach $8.1 billion in market value by 2026, and peas are well positioned to capitalize on that growth. At the same time, what we're seeing is that governments around the world are setting ambitious targets for the environment. For example, the Canadian government is targeting a greenhouse gas emission reduction in the Canadian agriculture sector of 3 to 5 million tons by the year 2028, while also setting lofty targets for growing Canadian exports. So the question here in Canada really has become, how can farmers reduce their emissions while ensuring that agriculture continues to significantly contribute to the economy in Canada and for us to grow exports? And we're one sector here in Canada that feels like we have an answer to this question. Not only are pulses a great source of protein, high in fiber and rich in vitamins and minerals, but Pulse Canada has recently conducted a study benchmarking the positive impact that Canada's pulse industry has on both our environment and the economy. So this benefit is not only attributed to pulses like peas being a nitrogen fixating crop, so they don't use nearly as much nitrogen as other crops, but also to the widespread adoption in Canada of agronomically responsible production practices amongst Canadian pulse and pea growers. So that includes things like zero-till farming, as well as nitrogen and 4R stewardship and integrated pest management practices. So these all contribute to a lower environmental footprint for Canadian pulses like peas. And what we've actually found is that in Canada, when we incorporate a crop like peas or a pulse crop into a crop rotation that was pulse-free prior to that, we can see a 5 to over 20% reduction in the total carbon footprint compared to a rotation of crops that don't include a pulse. So how we're positioning this in Canada right now is that with the right investments in research, varietal development and marketing, Canadian pulse and Canadian pea acres can and will continue to grow and are poised to lower Canada's environmental footprint even further. And these environmental benefits that the Canadian industry have now quantified can also be extended to the environmental footprint and end use products that contain Canadian pulses and Canadian peas. So we've also assessed the impact of reformulating, for example, cereal-based foods to include pulses. So, for example, and as you can see here, by incorporating 30% Canadian pea flour in traditional durum wheat pastas, not only does that enhance the protein and fiber levels, but it results in an 18% reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions associated with that finished product. So other things like including pulses in livestock diets can reduce the environmental footprint of pork production and can help develop and market livestock products with low environmental footprints. And a recent life cycle analysis that we conducted showed that incorporating Canadian peas into pork rations reduces the carbon impact of feed by 28%. Another emerging trend we've seen is blending plant and animal protein in a single product. Again, the environmental footprint of a beef burger was compared to a blended burger of beef and Canadian lentils. And we found that we can significantly improve the carbon footprint by including pulse flours. So again, not only do pulses have the nutritional benefits that we've long known of, but they have quite an impact on the environmental footprint as well. So they're having a huge impact in this area. And really the bottom line is that an investment into pulses is an investment into the economy, the environment, and our collective health and well-being. And that's really how we're positioning things in Canada. And what we feel this will lead to, all that to say, is increased productive capacity of peas in Canada. So the chart on the right-hand side there illustrates what Canadian market analysts are projecting for Canadian pea production to do by the year 2026. And that red box highlights the next 3 years and shows an increase to at least 4.5 million acres. So that would be producing in excess of 5 million metric tons with an export availability of minimum of 4 to 4.2 million metric tons. So we do feel that our production will increase. And you know, the way we're positioning pulses right now, we do feel that is going to attract the appropriate investment into the things that we need to grow acres and grow this sector in Canada to continue to be a reliable supplier to customers like the Chinese market. And again, with that growth scenario that I've outlined, the underlying growth, underlying assumptions of that growth scenario are that acres and yields follow the trends that we've seen over the past 20 years. Also that domestic usage keeps increasing, markets for peas remain open, and that these environmental and sustainability factors that I mentioned remain very important to the global marketplace, and that buyers recognize that as well. So obviously, the focus of this session and my overview has been on peas, but I did want to reemphasize that Canada is not only a leading producer and supplier of peas, but also other pulse crops as well. Production of lentils, faba beans, chickpeas, and dry edible beans has also experienced steady growth in the last 20 years in Canada, from around 4 million metric tons in 2000 to an average annual production of around 6 to 7 million metric tons now. And we expect acreage to continue to grow, not just for peas, but for all pulses. As discussed, we feel like the innate environmental benefits of pulses are really going to drive an increase in demand and in turn acres in Canada. And especially in the context of countries' climate goals, like reducing the emissions of the agricultural sectors globally. So, of course, moving forward, we would not only like to be a pea supplying partner of China, but we'd also like to be able to supply China with additional Canadian pulses when needed as well. And currently, as you know, we don't have phytosanitary access to do so for crops like lentils, chickpeas, or beans, but we are engaged in the application process with GACC to gain access for lentils, chickpeas, faba beans, and dry beans, and we remain committed to seeing that process through. So with that, I'll close and thank you very much again for the invite and for the opportunity. I do have to leave the meeting at the top of the hour, but invite you to please direct any questions or contact me with any questions that you may have. Thank you very much again.
谢谢 Mike 非常全面详细的这个介绍。
Thank you, Mac Rose, for your comprehensive introduction. So we have better understanding of the past, now, and the future of Canadian peas. And just as you said, Canada is already submitting application for market access for Canadian chickpeas, lentils, and faba beans. So we hope that we can get approval as soon as possible. So all those companies involved in export and import will benefit from those approvals and the new market access. And we hope that Pulse Canada can invite more Canadian companies to visit China. Okay, now we can move to the Chinese market introduction. I will give my floor to Mr. Sun Kai from CFNA. Hi everyone, can you all hear me? Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Embassy of Canada to China for working with us in organizing this webinar. And we would like to thank Mr. Trevor Yu, Mr. William Wang, Mr. Steve, and Mr. Mac Ross for your excellent presentation. So we have heard about Canadian situation. So now Chinese representatives are going to introduce China's Flaxseed, China-Canada trade in this industry. We will have more insight and analysis going on. First of all, we have invited Mr. Lin Zhangqiang from Tianjin EZT Company Limited to introduce China-Canada Agro-trade. So Mr. Lin Zhangqiang is a very experienced professional in this area with more than 30 years of experience, and he also is a moderator for international trade. At the same time, Mr. Lin Zhangqiang has special insights into this industry, and for every webinar and online conferences, we would love to have him with us. Now let's welcome Mr. Lin Zhangqiang, and I'm going to share the screen for you, Mr. Lin.
Mr. Lin, the slides are ready. You may start now. Thank you. Distinguished President Cao, Councillor Yu, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are grateful for CNFA to hold this event. During the pandemic, we faced some inconvenience of traveling. Yet, we have turned to new formats for communication. CFNA organized 3 online seminars last year. Without such convenient means, it is very hard for us to have exchanges. So we are grateful for Mr. Sun and President Cao for your efficient utilization of online seminars. As for my speech, to start with, I want to share with you about the overall trade condition of China-Canada agro products. I mainly want to focus on enterprises, member enterprises of CNFA, as well as the products in focus by our Canadian counterparts. For instance, peas, flaxseed. I was more for the other types of pulse and products. We may give only a brief introduction. The next page, please. China and Canada are mutually reinforced because China is the second largest trading partner for Canada. And Canada is China's second import destination, and vice versa. China is Canada's second largest export destination. In the past 24 years, the growth rate of export was 8% from Canada to China. By some definitions, the growth rate was some 10%. It is quite marvelous to have such consecutive growth. Just as President Cao has mentioned, at present, China still has the world's largest population. Therefore, we have higher demand for agro products each year in terms of quantity and varieties. As the most important agricultural producer, Canada is very important for China, and also China is critical for Canada. We know that Canada is important export destination for China. We know that we import a lot of pulse, cereals, wheat, barley, etc. But at the same time, China also exports to Canada in terms of fruits, fresh vegetables, even the pre-made food, which is quite popular in China now. Therefore, we have highly complementarity in terms of agro products. And for the exports from China to Canada, the added value is actually higher. Since we already have cooperation in the past 24 years, the trade between China and Canada is mature. In terms of quantity and varieties, we still have a lot of potential to tap into. As mentioned by the Embassy of China, all kinds of market accesses. For instance, the lentils, we need to bypass the third country like Turkey to access China. By the same token, chickpeas. We still have a lot of room for improvement in terms of import. We also have challenges in our cooperation. I would like to share some of my perspectives, starting from geopolitics, as well as the impact of trade barriers. As I have mentioned, the 5 major trading partners of Canada, of course, the US is the top one, accounting for a large percentage. In the rest, China takes up some 8.1%. Then important trade partner in North America, Mexico, and then Japan, Britain. But from the bar chart in the right, it is kind of interesting phenomena. We account for only some 8% in total trade volume. Yet in export volume of Canada, China accounts for some 13.56%. Therefore, China is an important importer or buyer for Canada. On this slide, we have the 3-year analysis. Mark Ross gave us a description of the past 20 years. Steve gave a summarization of the past 10 years, and we want to analyze in the past 3 years to be more specific. In the past 10 years or 20 years, the overall trend is upward. Yet, due to COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the once in a millennium drought in Canada in 2021, the import volume actually dropped in the past 2 years. Yet the trend is still upward. It is only an occasional incident which impacted the trade between the two countries. So we hope that in 2023, the figure can turn up, export can return to the growth mode because overall agricultural produce in Canada is competitive. As one important ingredient in crop, B takes up important place. The higher volume of export in P can benefit Chinese consumers. On this slide, we have one quite well-recognized pie chart. It illustrates all types of agro-produce and their percentage from Canada to China. We can see that in the top place is the rapeseed. Some 96% of rapeseed of China is procured from Canada, and rapeseed is an important ingredient for the oil production in China. On the second place, the yellow part, which is wheat. Canada is an important place of origin for China's wheat consumption. The next part, 18%, represents barley. In comparison, P accounts for 15% of China's imports from Canada. It is competitive in price, it has wide application. 15% is already high. After all, P is a minor agro-produce. Its usage is not large enough compared with rapeseed or wheat or barley. Therefore, 15% is already a high figure. Then we have the flaxseed, which accounts for a small percentage. Since we also have a small red bean and also kidney bean, which also take up some percentage. On this page, we can see the figure about mung bean. It is one of the major exports of China. As one major exporter of mung bean, China has lowered the volume of its export. In the past 5 years, the exports of mung bean to Canada also declined from the original some 4,000 tons. But we know that the mung bean is of high quality, especially for the germination. Therefore, we hope that on the basis of more than 2,000 tons in 2022, our export of mung bean can grow and we can have competitive edge compared with counterparts in, for instance, in Ethiopia. In terms of the total trade amount, the volume declined, but the total value was on the uptrend. It represents the higher price of pulse in the world. Apart from inflation factor, it reflects people's demand for pulse. They're willing to pay more money for pulse consumption. This trend is also in line with consumption, no matter in China, but also in the world. On this page, we can see an interesting phenomenon, which is the import of oat from China, which grew very fast. 5 years ago, only some 3,000 tons. But last year, the figure was already 7,300 tons, more than doubled. It is a steep growth because oat is a healthy product. Chinese consumers already have wider recognition for this produce. In the past, we mainly imported from Australia, but now Canada has taken up a larger share. The decline in 2022 was not due to the consumption issue. The main factor was still the drought in Canada, lead to the lower yield of oat. As a result, the price soared. But from overall trend, I believe that the Canadian oat has larger room for expansion. By 2023, we may surpass the 2021 volume, namely some 9,000. This year, we can expect more than 10,000 tons of import of oat. As for the trade value, we can see the same trend as long bean. Although the volume dropped, but prices rose. As a result, the total value was on the increase. It reflects not only the higher prices in last year, but also the higher recognition among consumers for oat.
And this is the situation for peas. We have to highlight on some points. When comparing with like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, well, the growing trend has actually changed. Well, in recent years, China's import of Canadian peas is actually fluctuating a little bit. So from those bar chart, you can see it's fluctuating, and from the trend, from the dotted line, you can see it's decreasing over the past years. So we have to pay attention to this trend. With 10 years of growth, it started to decrease. There are many factors behind that. For example, in 2020, the import reached almost 2 billion tons. But in 2021-22, it started to decrease because of the drought that is so rare. So Canadians' pea output dropped from 4 million to 2 million tons. Even with warehouse stocks, the total output still decreases and drives up the prices. So Canadians' export not only dropped in China, but also in many other countries. And the price rise of Canadian peas is also a very important factor. Canadian peas are used as a animal feed in China for feeding like pigs and cows. And once the price of peas is much higher than corns, than wheats, so peas will no longer be used as animal feed. Actually, more than 1 million tons of Canadian peas are used as animal feed in China. And of course, there are other purposes for Canadian peas, such as making them into starch, into vermicelli, or for making wine. But the overall usage decreased due to the higher prices. And the majority of Canadian peas are yellow peas. the price can be as high as $600, and it is decreasing to 440 yuan. However, when compared with 2018 and 2019, it's only about 240 yuan. So the price almost doubles that in 2018 and 2019. And the price of a Canadian peas is much higher than corns, wheat, and bean curd. So if there's no adjustment to the prices, then I believe the 2023 import of Canadian beef will increase a little bit, but the increase is only limited. The other factor is Russia. Due to geopolitical factors, and also because of the major exporting countries of Russia is Middle East countries, India, and Pakistan. However, due to the impact of Russian invasion into Ukraine, there are lots of sanctions from the Western countries. So Russia actually increased their export to China. And in January this year, we hold a closed-door meeting with Russia and signed a market access agreement. So Russian beans and peas are now arriving in Chinese ports in batches. They are in quite high quality, and they are also very cost-effective. So Russia's quote is about only 420 or 380 US dollars. So commercially speaking, Russia's products are more competitive than Canada's. So this is definitely going to impact the export from Canada to China. So it is also worth noting. Okay, maybe next slide, please. And this is the total volume of China imported Canadian peas. We can also see the price changes. When compared with year 2018, when the price is about 240 to 300 US dollar per ton, but in last year, if we consider both green peas and yellow peas, at the highest, the price can be as high as 600 US dollar and more per ton. And this high price is also reflecting that when the supply decreases, the high pricing is actually compensating the growers. However, it is also causing Canada to lose competitivity in terms of a price. So if in 2023, if the prices continues to maintain at such a high level, then I believe the trend will continue. So if the price decreases, then China will import more from Canada. And now let's have a look at Canadian flaxseeds. There's also a worth noting trend for the overall agricultural products. We can see that the imports is actually increasing for China. However, for flaxseed, it is a little bit dramatic. Why do I say it's dramatic? Because in year 2018, we actually imported 300,000 tons. But in 2022, we only imported 30,000 tons. So this is the fastest decreasing imports historically in China. Why is that? Well, flaxseed import has been stable in China. In year 2018, Canada's output is about 600,000 tons. And the major exporting country is China. In year 2021, due to the severe drought in Canada, which leads to low yields, so the price of Canada flaxseed increased from 650 US dollar to almost 1,800 yuan. That almost triples the prices in only 7 months. So that was really dramatic. That is why in year 2020, Canada's flaxseed export to China decreased, and Canada consumed most of its flaxseed production by itself and exported some of them to the States. And when the price goes down, as about 800 US dollar, $950, or even lower than 600 US dollars, they can enter the Chinese market. Otherwise, they will be denied access to the Chinese market. So that is the dramatic situation for Canadian flaxseed. And in terms of total volume, it's also reflective to that dramatic history. Actually, China's output of flaxseed also increases. We produce about 300,000 tons, and we import about 420,000 to 450,000 tons. So these numbers have been quite stable for a long time. And the flaxseed from Russia actually filled in the gap of Chinese demand. At the beginning, the flavor is not well taken by Chinese consumers. It's not well taken by the factories, the processing facilities. However, in terms of price, Russian flaxseed is still the mainstream on the market. So this year, we see that flaxseed production recovered in Canada, and the price also dropped from 1,700 to about 620 to 630 in February, and now this price stabilizes at about 660. So if Canadian flaxseed price can stabilize in such a price range, then I believe this year in 2023, the Canadian exports to China will rebound and may recover to about 100,000 tons or 200,000 tons. So we, of course, hope that Canadian flaxseeds will be more competitive and capture more market share in China. And of course, for the other category, kidney bean, China is also a exporting country for kidney beans. We have red kidney bean and pink kidney beans. And although when comparing with year 2020, we witnessed a great decrease. However, from the overall trend, we see that the export is growing from 5,000 tons to 6,000 tons. Apologies, this is the China's export of kidney beans to Canada, and this is representing the Chinese history of growing kidney beans. Because in the past, we always believe that we have a low cost in terms of labor, but with rising cost of labor, we are also facing difficulties. And most of the China's export are organic kidney beans. and the volumes is decreasing year on year. I believe bilateral trade is bidirectional. We still hope that we can export more kidney beans to Canada and continue to capture market share. And as for China's imports of Canada kidney beans, the volumes continue to rise. In year 2021, the imports reached a historical high. Even with the drought, due to the price competitiveness of Canadian kidney beans. And in year 2021, the import has exceeded 10,000 tons. And even with severe drought, in the year 2022, we still maintained a relatively high imports of Canadian kidney beans. The total volumes was about 4,000 tons. So if we have more market access to other categories such as chickpeas and taco beans, then maybe the Chinese market will have more choices. Okay, we can move to the next slide. And for export to Canada, we are still persistent on exporting to Canada because our mung bean for germination purposes are still advantageous when compared with other competitors. We still maintain our market share in Canada. And for organic pods, we have very stable needs due to those consumers who are chasing high quality producers.
As a major pulse exporter with such stable demands, we hope to create more consumption and larger market. As for Canada imports, China's imports from Canada, to start with barley, especially the wheat and the soybean, their import has been stable because China is the traditional consumer of soybean and wheat. They are like the basis for China's food security. Import of pea, including flaxseed, is mainly affected by prices. If the price goes up in the future, the volume will continue to drop. For instance, for pea, if the import is higher than 2 million tons, some 1 million will be used as feedstock. If they cannot be competitive in prices in terms of with other kinds of feedstock, and the import volume will be impacted. As for flaxseed, we are delighted to see that it's already competitive. So we hope to maintain or resume its dominant place in import. As for kidney bean, last year the import was already more than 10 tons, and we may expect further increase. In China, the planting area of kidney bean will drop further in the future, but on the other hand, Chinese consumers are more aware of the benefits of consuming kidney beans, so imports volume will be higher. As for the prospects of China-Canada agri-product trade, from the professional analysis and all the statistics, we can see that there is a huge room for improvement of agri-products trade. For instance, there are some benefiting policies, including the market access and the adjustment in trade policies. So some new agro products from Canada will enter China's market. For instance, fava bean, China's planting area is on the decrease. For varieties like fava bean, they can be produced into flour and as the baking material, etc. What's more, the chick bean and cancels, after importing to China, they can replace traditional ingredients in China's dishes. What's more, due to globalization and people's awareness of health, and we may pay more attention to such healthy agro products. Because Chinese population is witnessing higher incidence of chronic diseases, and the consumption of pulse is beneficial to people's health. Therefore, China's import of Canadian beans has a large room for improvement. If the compound growth rate can maintain 8% in the future, we expect higher volume and larger varieties. On the basis of 2 decades of cooperation, and our momentum is very strong. As for some minor agro products, including pea and what's more, fruits, nuts, and pre-made dishes, there is also potential for improvement. There is some development space for two-way trade between the two countries. Of course, there is some competition from the Black Sea. Therefore, Canada is facing this competition because Canada has the sparsely distributed population. Therefore, a lot of lands can be used for agriculture. The price competitiveness can be high. And in the past few years, we know about incident of Miss Mo Wanzhou, which tested the trade of pea. It proves that the stability of trade needs to be guaranteed by political stability between the two countries. So we hope that Canadian government can provide more trade-friendly policies to enhance the stability of bilateral trade. Therefore, a large room for improvement and potential. We hope that we can work together so that such healthy trade can benefit people from both countries. A small advertisement for myself. As Mr. Sun has mentioned, I was in agro-trade business for more than 3 decades. I'm willing to cooperate with colleagues and partners. I would like to share more information with you in the future. Thank you.
我的演讲到此结束。好，感谢，能看到吧？感谢林总深入而全面的。
Thank you, Mr. Lin Zhangqiang, for your in-depth discussion.
能听到吧？能听到，可以。中国的消费市场呢，在不断的扩大。
As we know, China's consumption market has been expanding.
全球最大的一个供给国。
Canada is a major supplier in the world, so we have strong complementarity. Despite of the factors of geopolitics and competition from other markets, I believe that through our joint efforts to facilitate trade and organizing relevant seminars and matchmaking events will reinforce our trade.
给大家进行一个演讲。下面的话呢，是由
Our next speaker
方农国际贸易有限公司陈长伟
from Nanjing
为大家做有关中国豌豆贸易
Bangro International Trading Company Limited, Mr. Chen Changwei, about introduction on Chinese pea trade. The company was founded for more than 10 years. It is mainly dedicated to the agro-processing for exports. It has a strong international trade team and multiple years of working experience in multinationals. Mr. Chen Changwei is a founder of Bangro International Trading Company. He has more than 2 decades of experience in international trade, so I would like to invite Mr. Chen for his keynote speech.
可以能听到啊，请你把那个 PPT 放上啊。
行，我马上稍等一下，我把您 PPT 打开。
好嘞。
你好，能看到吗？
好，可以了哈。尊敬的曹会长，
Distinguished President,
各位参会者，
Cao, Councillor Yu,
加拿大使馆
dear participants, I'm grateful for the Embassy of Canada and CFNA for organizing this event so that I can share with you about the imported bees in China.
讲的主题有以下3个方面。
Here is the agenda of my speech.
第一个方面就是我们回顾一下近6
To start with, the recap of
进口的这个相关情况。
pea import in the past 6 years.
第二个方面
We have per year, per month analysis. The second part, we highlight the import of pea in 2022 in terms of quantity, price, origin, as well as the provinces of major processors.
简洁的共识，这个分享一下，就是
Third, I want to share with you about the supply and demand trend of pea in 2023.
这张表是我们2017年到2022年这个。
On this chart, from 2017 to 2022, China's import of dry pea.
2020年
In 2020,
达到
there was a peak in import,
约307万吨。
some 3.07 million tons.
市场就是相
From 2017 to 2019,
稳妥的这样
the market was stable with little growth. After 2020, due to different factors, including the rising prices, import volume started to drop. In 2020, compared with the peak in 2020, and the import has dropped by some 47%. It illustrates that the demand of pea in China is not rigid because there are some substitutes, especially in feedstock. Therefore, it is highly replaceable, and we need to pay attention to this fact.
这张表是我们逐月来看近6年来我们的豌豆。
On this slide, we can see the import of pea by month.
这个11月份。
Sorry, the speaker has muted himself. We can't hear his voice.
陈总，您静音了。
喂，您好，陈总。
喂，能听到吗？
能听到。刚才有一段时间
可能是我历史，这个可能是我们历史最高的一个记录。
We can see we have the record in the November of 2020 in terms of import of pea.
可以听到吗？
可以。
OK。那同时也可以看到我们历史最低的记录是在。
At the same time, the valley was in 2020 September.
历史最低记录我们这个月仅仅进口大概14000。
In that month, the import was only some 14,000 tons, which was a small quantity.
第三个一个呢，我想分析啊，大家可以看一下2017年的这样一个逐月的曲线。
Let's look at the month-by-month curve in 2017. It was kind of flat. The total import was some 1.28 million tons. To be frank, the demand in 2017 was authentic, which reflects the rigid demand in China because there is no price factor, there is no replacement factor from forage, so it is the real demand for pea in China.
这个是我们2022年的逐月的进口数字。这个
month-by-month figure in 2022, as we have analyzed, the trade volume was extremely low in September, which was only some 14,000 tons.
加拿大收割之前的，我们通常说青黄不接的时候，那就是7、8、9、3个月。
In July to September, which was a post-harvest season in Canada, there was a shortage of supply. But after October and November, there is the peak period because we are not willing to see such fluctuation in the whole year. If we have too much stock in one period of time, for the practitioner of pea, we have the high pressure for the price drop. We hope to have the stable month-by-month figure. In 2022, after July and October, and the practitioners in pea faced the losses, then the stock went up. It was very hard for the industry to make profit.
这个是去年整个一年的这个价格走势图，豌豆价格走势图。
And this is the price for pea over the last year. And in the curve, we can see in July, it is very prominent. It is a historical low price point in July. The major reason behind the low price in July is the total price of yellow pea. And for some kasbah and other special strains are entering into China from Australia, and the price is about 500 or 520. So it's getting the average price down. But for other months, the price maintained around 600. This curve is showing the average price. It's not reflective of yellow pea, green pea, or other varieties of peas. It is more consistent with the price trend of a yellow pea because yellow pea is the majority of Canadian peas. In the future, maybe we can separate the prices so we can have more detailed information and insights. And in this chart, I like it a lot. Well, first of all, it's reflecting which countries have market access to China in terms of pea. And this is also showing the major supplier of pea to China. There are some countries, although small in volume, but we know there are special varieties of pea. First of all, Canada is still the largest supplier of pea to China. Canada is supplying yellow pea, dump peas, discard, winter pea, and green pea to China. Although in year 2020, Canada accounts for 86% of China's import of peas. However, this proportion has been decreasing. It's decreasing about 7 to 8% last year. And I believe for Canada counterparts, you must be familiar with this situation. And then Australia is the second largest supplier of peas to China. It abruptly entered the Chinese market in 2022. And Australia peas replaced 9% of poultry feed. And the import has already reached 144,000 tons. And Argentina also entered the Chinese market due to its price advantage when the price of Canadian peas is high. If we look into USA, the total imports of pea from US is only about 11,000. So we mainly import some high-end varieties and special varieties of peas from the States. And so it is very surprising for Argentina to capture this market share in China. And for France and New Zealand, some of their products are used for mad fat. And for France, these 36,000 tons of pea are mainly used for protein factories. And the price is relatively higher than the others. We are also surprised to see that India also entered the Chinese market in terms of pea. Well, India is a very traditional and stable importer of pea. However, it is exporting pea to China. It's making new attempts. In terms of the 336 ton of pea, I believe it is a very nice try. And I can tell you that in 2023, there will be 9 supplier of pea to China, which will include Russia in this chart. And in this new chart, we can see in China domestically, how are the pea importers located and distributed in different provinces of China? There are 17 provinces and cities that are importing and importing peas. Well, Shandong is taking the lion's share. It takes about 41% of total import of pea. And the average price is 563. So for the Shandong market has several reasons. While of the price is a little higher because Shandong have purchased the high-priced, high-quality peas from France. So Shandong's importing price is higher than Fujian, Guangdong, and Jiangsu. And I want to specifically point out Hainan province. Hainan imports about 33,000 tons of peas. Well, what does this number tell us? It tells us that it is really worth researching. After the establishment of the free trade area in Hainan, I believe there are some special policies that are favoring imports. So maybe there are opportunities lying around in the Hainan province due to those policy benefits. Now, I will help analyze the demand and the supply relationships in 2023. Now, so currently we have a heavy stock. As far as March 1st, we have about 260,000 tons of stock. And second of all, the Russian origin piece has already entered the Chinese market. We already see orders being placed, and the price ranges from 430 to 455. And Russia will become very stable supplier to the Chinese market. So the landscape suddenly changed. In the last chart, Canada still captures 86% of Chinese market, and this number will drop in 2023. We lost audio again. And currently, just as President Cao said, due to the impact of COVID-19, due to the demand of European and US markets, there are still pressure for exports, and the fluctuation is also going to impact our demand and the need of protein in animal feed. And in February, when we were visiting markets, we heard that the stock of aqua food is leading to lack of money for raisers to purchase more feed. So this is a market insight which surprised us. So we have to pay close attention to aqua food and their influence towards peace. And third, we have to talk about whether the food and beverage, as well as tourism sector is rebounding in 2023. Because in these two sectors, there are needs for pea starch and pea protein processed food. So our conclusion is that China's demand for pea is stable with slight decreases. So this is reflecting the truth. So here are my thoughts. In year 2023, the total import volume is about 1.6 million tons. The actual number shouldn't be higher than that number. But we still have to look to the major producing area supply in Canada. But overall, I believe the total volume will decrease, and then the downward pressure for price is relatively larger. Because we already have a heavy stock of 260,000 tons, and we are seeing decreasing prices. In Qingdao port, we already hear that the prices is lower than 3,300 yuan per ton, or lower than 3,500 yuan per ton. So that is my analysis. So thank you very much for listening. That is all I have. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chen Changwei, for your sharing. And I can see that Mr. Chen has great insight towards pea trade and commerce in terms of its origin, application, varieties, as well as the prices. We heard a lot, very comprehensive, so thank you very much. Thanks again. Next up in our agenda, let's welcome Mr. Zhang Shucheng from Yantai Shuangta Food Company Limited to talk about Chinese pea processing industry. For Yantai Shuangta Food Company, it is a company in China that are leading the protein processing in China. and it is the only listed company in this sector. For Mr. Zhang Shucheng, he is the Chief Technology Officer of Yantai Shuangta Food Company, and he has a very rich experience in R&D. So let's welcome Mr. Zhang Shucheng for your presentation. Thank you very much. Yes, I will help share. I can also share from my side. Okay, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, good morning. My name is Zhang Shucheng from Shuangta Food. I will talk about protein processing and the future directions. I will talk about the new opportunities and the new trends. I will talk about the following 4 aspects, including introduction to Shuangta, industry trends, core advantage, future plan, etc. And of course, for Shuangta Food, it's located in Zhaoyuan City in Shandong Province, and it is the largest company producing and selling vermicelli, pea starch, pea protein, and mushrooms. So for peas and mung bean, we have a full industrial chain from production, processing to separation, extraction, food, fiber, biogas, electricity generation, etc. So we have a fully closed chain for processing. So this is the awards won by Shuangta. So I will focus on the comprehensive industrial chain. So from the processing of peas, including mung bean, chickpea, and other beans. Well, this figure can apply to all those varieties of beans. So we will separate fiber, protein, starch, and we will have a very comprehensive usage to them.
In the processing period, we'll have some waste material. For instance, the liquid fertilizer. In the sewage processing, we can have some biogas, which can be used comprehensively. And finally, all these materials will be returned to the soil and to form a closed loop. We refer to it as the ecosystem cycle. So it is one important advantage of Shuangta. We get the FSMA, FSVP certificate, as well as the certificate of GACC. The main application of processed pea protein, which can be applied in the beverage, the artificial meat, as well as the meat for baking, etc. Compared with animal protein, the plant protein has much better growth trajectory. The innovation in pea protein is mainly about high protein, nutritious products, for instance, the health protection products, and it is anti-fatigue and providing energy and to maintain the basic body biometrics. The core nutrition of protein is that the people's health requires the continuous support of high-quality protein food. And we also have the immunization factor of protein and anti-fatigue effects will make further improvement. In China, we have the philosophy that we use food to maintain health instead of medicine. And we have the multiple protein, which is quite sought after by the market. As for the lifestyle innovation based on protein, the pea protein is important in improving people's diet and health. In the industry, the so-called artificial meat and functional protein and the solid beverage will be the main direction for application for the patient, teenagers, and it is widely applied. The artificial meat is widely applied in hot pot and in diet. We also have some healthcare products, namely protein powder, which represent existing market and which need to be further solidified in the future. What will be the breakthrough for the growth of pea protein? It is not a single product. Instead, it is the development of the whole supply chain. Therefore, we need new market products, new strategy, and new mindset. In the past, we produce a product from the pea, and then we make vermicelli. Now it's not only about vermicelli. We have a completely new area. It's like the full supply chain processing. In our view, in protein processing, a little pea can change the whole planet. It is about the full pulse ecosystem strategy, including the cultivation of pea from the picking and the cultivation of pea, and we made some preparation. The ingredient of pea contains the starch and fiber and protein. Protein is of high value. The starch actually limits the improvement in added value. Therefore, from the cultivation of pea, we'll try to improve the content of protein and lower that of starch. It represents a breakthrough in the industry. Now we are cooperating with institutions on some new varieties of pea with some 35% of protein in the content. It is important for the industry. The second part is about ecosystem R&D for some effective ingredients, including starch, protein, and fiber. We have comprehensive utilization. We invite experts to make good use of the full supply chain. As for the tracing, customers are requiring the full supply chain traceability of pea from production to consumption. We need to guarantee the rights of consumers, no matter Canadian, Russian, or French peas. Increasingly, market demands need to be in line with the requirement of ecosystem. People also require the high-quality organic peas. How can we improve the market development? We need to have the full life cycle of ecosystem recycling. We need to improve the remaining value of pea. For such remaining value or surplus value of pea, we can create some organic fertilizer and to benefit the Mother Earth. We know that EU is a destination of pea, but there are some carbon tax and relevant issues. For enterprises, how can we have a virtuous cycle? How can we improve the health level in the planet and lower the burden in environment, for instance, CO2 emission and incidence of diseases, the waste of resources? To solve these issues, we need to improve the supply of crops and to boost people's health. This is a future trend of the industry. There are some environmental advantages. We know that plant-based protein and animal protein can have major differences in GHG emission. Traditionally, we believe that the exhaust from automobile is the major source of GHG emission, but actually 51% of emission comes from the animal husbandry and the byproducts processing, as well as NOx emission. In China, the government's investment in environmental protection is not only about funding. In 2020, China's total investment in environmental protection reached some 960 billion RMB, including the sorting and recycling of garbage. So it is beyond our imagination what role protein can play in environmental protection. What's more, young people are more aware of resource and climate change, sustainable consumption. For the new generation, they have better mindset or better recognition for plant-based protein. According to the survey of young people, they pay more attention to climate change, the care for the minority, and resource protection, educational equity, gender equity, etc.
相当我们可以看到很多的这个除了我们这个资源消费，还有一些为环保花钱。那为什么呢？就我们现在消费
people are more willing to pay for environmental protection. It is like the disruptive change in the market. It is not only limited to EU and the US. The Chinese consumers are also more aware of the environmental protection. We know that COVID-19 has major impact on people's ideas, including healthy diet and the consumption of protein. One of our survey on what methods consumers pursue for health, to start with diet, then exercise, healthcare products, and medicine. So diet is at the top place for people's health pursuit. We need to make functional food as the daily dish of customers. It is a future trend of plant-based protein. In the headlines, the total volume or the reading volume of health news is on the rise. So the change is happening day by day. In the past, protein enterprises mainly focus on the export to foreign markets, but now we pay more attention to consumer market in China, especially protein beverage, protein powder, etc. Dr. Zhang Wenhong, a famous physician in China, he says that children need to have high nutrition and high protein products and food. They need to have milk, eggs in the morning, then they can go to school and study. So we need to have all kinds of protein, including the mung bean protein and the faba bean protein, etc. As for environmental friendly of protein processing, including conservation of lands, from the comparison, we can see that protein from plant is much more superior than animal protein. As for pea protein processor, we have the full supply chain development. What are the players in such a supply chain? What is the future? From Shanta's perspective, apart from environmental protection and health, we need to extract all the effective content of pea. For instance, the current sugar, current oligosaccharide sugar, and we can extract such important content and also some anti-disease starch as well as fiber. Apart from the simple function as food, we can concentrate all this content and to use this ingredient or this content for the fighting against chronic diseases. So it is important to change for the virtuous cycle of protein from plant. It is so above is the current status and the future perspectives of plant-based protein. We hope to join hands with partners and to create a brighter future. Thank you.
喂，能听到吗？喂，
听到。
那个张总，你好，那个请解除一下共享。
好嘞。
Mr. Zhang, now please share your screen. Please relieve your screen. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your in-detail discussion about pea processing.
下面一个呢，我们将为大家，然后这个有请天津兴邦国际货运代理。
Our next speaker is from Tianjin Xinbang International Freight Forwarding Company Limited, Mr. Guo Jie. The topic of his speech is the best practice in uncustom declaration of agro-commodities. Mr. Guo is also an old friend for us. Many companies had business relations with Mr. Guo in custom declaration. Mr. Guo has long-term experience in agro-products. Xinbang International Freight Forwarding has a history of more than 15 years, so he is an expert in the industry. Now let's welcome Mr. Guo for his keynote speech.
Please bear with us one more moment. Now, can you see your screen? Yes, I can see it. Thank you very much. You can start. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the invitation to this webinar. And after receiving this invitation, I hesitated a bit because Canadian flaxseed, we are not sure about its future direction. We have questions. Well, according to 2022, the custom statistics and analytics, the total import of flaxseed is 600,000 tons, and Russia accounts for 70%. Canada fall to number 3 from number 1 in the past, only account for 4.9%. And according to the statistics, here in the table we can see the data, the total volume. However, starting from 2022, in December, in those single months in December 2022, Canadian is facing with a more stern situation. There are only 872 ton of flaxseed from Canada. The total market share is only 1.1%. Next slide. And from the cluster of flaxseed, well, according to February data this year, Tianjin ranks number 1, and Tianjin is the only cluster, the only port for Canadian flaxseed. According to statistics in February, we see that Russian flaxseed still ranks number 1. Okay, next slide. Apologies, I cannot hear people's voices. I will reboot my system. Apologies. One moment, please.
Wait. 喂，
那个郭总，我们以及在线的各位听众，大家稍微
Hi, Mr. Guo and everyone with us. We are solving technical issues. Please give us one moment. Thank you.
你好，能听到吗？
能听到，您都听到了。
不好意思。
Can you hear me now? Okay, apologies.
您看是现在这页吗？
Is this the correct slide? Maybe next one. Okay.
那么，那好了，那我继续开始。
Okay, I will continue.
2022年的数据，我们
According to 2022 data,
中国进口亚麻籽的需求量是60万吨。
we see that China imports 600 tons of flaxseed, and nowadays the supply exceeds the demand. In the new production season of 2022, the production of flax seeds in Russia has increased significantly. It's about 800,000 tons, and for Kazakhstan, the estimated new production will be 600,000 tons. And due to international geopolitical situation, the new production in Russia will only be exported to China. So, in general, 2023's total demand will be increased to 700,000 tons. However, due to the entry of Russian flax seeds, the domestic price will decrease. Next slide, please.
那么，俄罗斯亚麻籽之所以能够快速的
The reason why Russian flax seeds is capturing the market share is that the CNF price of Russian flax seeds is really competitive. At the same time, Russian flax seeds, when sold in China, there is almost no competitors. According to Google 99 March 1st flax seeds information, today the mainstream quotation of Russian seeds in Tianjin port is about 5,200 to 5,600 yuan per ton, while Canadian ones are about 300 yuan per ton. And there is one client that can get the price of 6,200 yuan. There are only 3 batches of Canadian flax seeds being out of the warehouse. However, there are almost 20,000 tons of Russian flax seeds being shipped out of the warehouse. And in terms of marine shipping, it's easy for Canadian flax seeds to reach Tianjin port, and for Russian, they have a different mode of transportation. Most of the Russian flax seeds come from Manchuli, Suifenhe River, and Alashan mountain. And for the cargo from the Black Sea region is shifted from port of Novorossiysk, Russia, and the current sailing time is 45 to 50 days. And for Far East region is on board from Vladia is shipped from the eastern part of Vladivostok in Russia. The marine shipping prices is decreasing. It's also very convenient. So Canadian cargo is more convenient to reach the Chinese ports than the Russian counterparts. And the custom declaration is completed in the Tianjin port. And according to the documents provided by the importer, there is room for improvement in Canada and Russia. And according to the packagings, those from trains and from Vladivostok, it's mainly packaged in bags. And those cargo from Russian, they are in bulk cargo. And for cargoes from Canada, it's about 20-foot containers packaging. And the packaging and transportation cost from Canada is a little bit better than that of Canada's. And according to our daily practice, the best custom declaration model is declaration in the port of entry. So we have the destination inspection and also custom inspection. This is the best declaration model. And in our daily operation, the entry port, if they didn't undergo the inspection, they will continue shipping. And if they were selected for inspection, the shipping will start again after the inspection is done. And here, in this slide, I want to talk about something about plant-based food. And the origin came from oats, peas, flax seeds. Nowadays, the import custom declaration no longer requires the 18 digits imported foods filing number. You only have to input the country code or region registration code. So GACC has already published the company list. We can already see those registered companies. It's only reflecting the country code or a region registration code. And the plant-based food is subject to the management of food department. And from the perspective of legislation, in the future, the flax seeds and pea custom declaration will be made easier in the future. Well, as a Tianjin resident, I will talk something about Tianjin. Will Tianjin become the largest port or cluster for flaxseed? I believe the answer is yes. Well, first of all, the warehouse is an imported grain processing plant and the plant-based food processing plant already approved by the customs. And second, in the 3 years of COVID-19, Tianjin custom is very responsible and wise and very smart in terms of COVID policies. The COVID policy in Tianjin port is more aligned with reality. And Tianjin port has not issued those extreme COVID control measures. In some ports, due to COVID-19, there are huge impacts to warehousing, to custom declaration. For Russian cargo, they have no issue at all in reaching Tianjin port, and we have no unnecessary interference with their normal operation. And this actually promotes Tianjin as the preferred distribution center for Russian cargo, including flaxseeds and peas. Tianjin also have a very mature distribution system and clustered distributors in Tianjin region, and Tianjin can impact and influence northern China. So Tianjin is not only a large distribution center for flax seeds, it's also a distribution center for many agricultural products from Russia, including oats, wheat, etc. Okay, next slide, please. For Tianjin, we already formed two warehousing and processing centers. So Tianjin Binhai New District Zhongyuan Xingda Logistic Company is the largest processing and warehousing center for flaxseed. And with 10 years of history, we already built our brand. For Yangbei Logistic Park, we have Zhongrui Da Logistic Company, Tianjin Jingyue Agricultural Product Company Limited, and the Xingfeng Huang Logistic Company becomes the another distribution center for flaxseeds and other agricultural products. For Tianjin Bong Agro International Freight Forwarding Company, we are a responsible company, very professional. We are dedicated to improve our service. This is our work priority. In Zhongyuan Xingda warehouse and Zhongrui Da warehouse, we have officers and managers in place. And now, for each cargo entered into our warehouse, we will send pictures to our clients, and we will forward this to the importer. We will become the very high quality service provider to our clients.
Thank you, our clients, for your support and trust. And thank you, dear partners, for your cooperation. I would like to pay tribute to Manager Ding Yuling from Buhe 99. The custom statistics and market prices were summarized by him, and we thank CFNA for your trust. Thank you, Mr. Guo, for your in-detail analysis. Although Mr. Guo is not in trade businesses, due to the efforts of freight forwarding, warehouse logistics enterprises, our agro-product trade can be smooth and stable. Of course, there are opportunities and challenges. I believe that for the traders in the two countries, we can reach an agreement through discussion so that we can further expand the trade development. We have concluded all the speeches in today's session. In the future, we'll organize Chinese and Canadian enterprises for the matchmaking events. Please pay attention to the news release from CNFA and Embassy of Canada. Ms. Yuan Ting, would you like to summarize on behalf of Embassy of Canada? Thank you for the cooperation for CFNA. We are grateful for the support of AB and SK provinces, as well as Canada House. We want to thank all the speakers in today's session. For Canadian enterprises online, especially those which have not registered for foreign trade in the custom. Please visit CFNA or the Embassy of Canada. You may contact Travel Yu face-to-face. Thank you all for your participation. I wish you successful cooperation and a win-win result. Thank you. We have concluded today's events. Thank you.